In astrology, we work with 7 main planets. I want to explain a bit more, but not right now. I want to explain a bit more about the layout of these planets. But let's just go for now that we've got these 7 main planets in astrology, or better called 7 energies. Because the planets, we tend to think of a planet in a night sky as one, as just like the moon hanging there or the sun hanging there. In actual fact, they've got more than just one understanding. When we look at the moon, we just think it's a cratered ball hanging in the night sky, but they have energies. When I talk of energy, I'm talking of like magnetism, I'm talking of electricity. So those type of energies, and the energies are not limited to one thing only. Your electricity or your cabling in your house doesn't limit it to only be used for lights or only for a stove. You can use it for a fridge. You can use it for many, many things. So electricity, like these planets or these energies, have many, many different functions. The inner world, the inner makeup of life, the core, the root of life. And it's ironic that these words root, core, inner are described not just in astrology, but many sciences, many paths. And those actually define the different clans or the different, although astrology talks of 12, there's actually 13. But we generally will look at 12 signs. That's the accepted norm, and it's functional. The 13 is not an individual separate sign within those 12. It's actually it actually is a group. Right. So the 13th is a group. Okay. And then those are actually these signs, or these what we call rulers, these groups, these clans, actually define the 12 different clans within inner Earth. Right. Now, inner Earth, I don't have a picture of an astrology chart. I could probably send you one. But if you have a look at the layout of an astrology chart, you'll observe that it has an outer ring where you've got your signs, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and so forth. Then just inside that usually is a second ring. That's the houses. That's something different. And then you've got the space where what we see the angles of one star to another, and there's usually lines in there. And then you've got the inner ring where everybody puts a lot of astrologers will put the name of the person whose chart it is with their various details. The irony is, if you actually look at this from a bird's eye view, you will observe that the signs are those stars out in the night sky. And as you come in closer, that inner ring actually defines the hole to in the North Pole, which goes into Agartha. I mean, why do we put fences around our property? Because that's our little domain, our little territory, and we don't want anybody else intruding on our territory. So what the result is, if anybody comes onto your property, you're going to warn him, or you're going to say, listen here, buddy, stay off my property. Is that classified as malevolent? No, but yet you'll allow friends in, so we're doing both. So you just have to know where the lines are. These 12 signs are what we call the gods. And those gods, the origin of astrology comes from inner Earth. Right. So what the result is, you can't go up to these major big cheeses and just demand. They've got their own whole life that they're running. They're managing this entire place. And we want to go and ask or supplicate for something of our need. That's rather rude.
So do these inner Earth beings, do they control the surface population?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And that's where we tend to knock the elite the whole time. I'm not saying the elite are great guys, but I am saying that the elite are actually controlled by these guys. These guys are actually the boss of the elite. And again, there's 12, 13 of them. Remember, we're going to talk of 12, but there's actually 13. Let's just stick with the 12 because we're dealing with a subject. So these 12 guys are the boss of this place. Yes. There's an entrance to the Himalayas, and it's actually closed off during the day, and it's run or controlled by a Hindu priest. Right. And he takes you down there. You have to actually come as groups. You're not going to go as a little group. You have to arrange large groups. And when we went from South Africa, there was 8 of us, and we joined up with a group in India, And we went as a large group of people, and we went down these caves, but we were only allowed to a certain point.
Yeah.
They claimed then it was blocked off and we couldn't go any further. Well, I now know that's not true.
Right.
Hybrids, you want to call them hybrids. Some of them are some of the big cheeses that come out, but these hybrids are only the guys who get into these top positions, not an average folk.
Right.
Like you. We're not going to get into those positions. You have to be a high-class hybrid. Not even the average hybrid is going to get up to that position. And again, you're elected. If you look at the coat of arms that was given to Prince Philip between 1947 and 1949, you'll see he has a specific coat of arms. And each of the royal family, the current royal family on the English side of the world, you'll have a look, each one gets given their own coat of arms. And those coat of arms, again, tell you about astrology. And when you start dissecting it, you will realize that that actually tells you who the different clans are. Yeah. Lion's Rock, when you have a look at that picture there, from a distance, I've given you a series or a group of pictures there. When you look at Lion's Rock, you'll see that it just looks like a average mountain, cliff faces that you can't climb up. But as you get close, or let's take it and then you move to the side, you'll actually notice it no longer looks like a lion's rock. It actually looks like another dinosaur species head. And then those claws at the entrance, that's not lion's claw. You start realizing very quickly that's another species. Yeah. Because those 3 toes, a lion has got 4 toes. These 2 feet have got 3 toes, and the nails are different from a lion's nails. He says there in the video that those nails are permanently protruded. A lion's nails are not permanently protruded, not in a resting position like us. And that was a particular group of people who lived there many long time ago, thousands of years ago. They lived in this place. Number one, yes, it's a self-thinking, self-operating machine. So you could say on the one hand, a machine cannot think for itself. It cannot go and look after its own terrain. You can't dump a machine and expect it to also maintain its environment. Yeah. You see, it's fair game. This species can be controlled. We are dictated to and told we're going to do X, Y, and Z. But you also need to clean up after your mess. Yeah. In actual fact, clean up what we've messed up, you're going to sort out afterwards. The sad part is, and this is not everybody, but it's also the surface of the earth is also a food hotspot. Yes. So we're also food. Certain events, certain major comings together of 2 and 3 and 4 different energies, when they come together, they will cause different things to happen in life. For example, when you make a cake, you will take different ingredients and you end up with a certain recipe. Just change those ingredients slightly and you would end up with a loaf of bread. Change it yet again and you'll end up with a pie. So these different energies, when you start understanding how you can combine them, and it's not by choice that you combine them, you just need to know when these energies are going to be at particular angles to each other. When they come together in that formation, you're going to end up with a particular picture or particular concept or particular event. So when you understand those events, you can then say, all right, I know what that's sort of going to manifest, demonstrate. The angles, the function of the angles is to show you the energy that's going to be around at that particular moment. And once you're prepared and you know what energy is going to come about, you know how to handle yourself when a situation arrives. So it's a preparatory system. So now when you have an eclipse, you'll have it where sometimes the sun and moon are sitting furthest away from each other or sitting closest to each other. And relative to that position, you're going to have a stronger effect or a weaker solar eclipse. Right. The controlling mechanism that's applied to Earth is done on purpose because not everybody's consciousness is such that they could handle the truth. In that when you realize that the core or the inner Earth are the source or the origin of all these energies, you need to realize that when you do something as simple as shuffling a group of tarot cards, or in your case, when somebody shuffles the runes, if that's a language from down there, from a certain clan, when you realize that that's the source of energy, people need to understand that while we think we are churning the ocean above, this bag of runes, this box of runes, while we think we are churning it with a certain consciousness in mind, in actual fact, somebody else who's the owner of this energy is participating at the same time, which is why you don't get haphazard readings. Something else is in control of that energy to put those runes out at a certain time for that person on that day. My website, I've just started putting it together. It's africanzodiac.co.za, because it's South African, so the ZA is there. Ghosts are very real. They're another dimension. I mean, if you think about dreams, what are dreams? We wake up and we had a nightmare, and it was so real. You can be killed. You can die of fright in a nightmare. How can that happen? The Matrix, one of my favorite movies, where Neo first goes into the Matrix. And he came out with blood, and he says, well, how's that possible? He wasn't doing anything in the physical body. Those are other dimensions which he was accessing. The pharaohs were the guys from Agartha. They are those Norse people that came up. They came originally to the end of the first piece of land that you come as you come outside of Agartha, outside of that opening. They took the land there, the red-haired people. There's actually information of this on the internet at the moment. You can go and research that the red-haired people were the start of the pharaohs, which were the Norse. And then they chose to come to Alexandria. They chose to come to Egypt there and set it up on that grid. We earthlings would never know where these nodes are. They know from underneath because they understand the whole system or the source of the system, and they've just decided to cap it on the other side so that there's actually a connection. It's no good putting an arc that's far apart. They've lined it up on top. Again, that's where the as above, so below comes in. They've got the grid underneath on the entire inside of Agartha. They've simply come in with their superior technology, come and seen, all right, that's where it is, and the Great Pyramid stands on the other side of one of their nodes. Pain and suffering are sometimes some of your greatest motivators to progress. Now, when we learn we're going to die, when we learn we're going to be suffering, poverty, pain, illness, loss of people, and it pushes your consciousness to realize there's more important things to life. So when Hitler was given this technology to produce a war, let me take a bit of let's backtrack here a bit. There are three big guys who rule this planet. That's your Nephilim, that's your Nagas, and that's your Anunnaki. So when you realize these three rule as a unit, you will realize that they are working, they have a plan. So when they put certain things into motion, whether they give technology, whether they cause certain events, remember at the end of the day, these events are not about our material well-being. The prime ministers are puppets or have been put there for a reason. Yes, you can say on the one level, obviously he's trying to buy the vote. But when we have a look at the distractions that this is causing to not let us pay attention to what else they're doing in the background, while we so focus on the sensationalism, we're not looking what's going on behind this. They want to rule with fear. Fear is a very powerful driving force. So fear is certainly a tool to use to control people. And obviously they're going to incite the oppressed people to say, but you can get more of this, you can get more of that, let's go for this. That's not the point of life. It's a bizarre concept. Death is a bizarre concept. Suffering is a bizarre concept, and yet it's very necessary. Because if you want to teach somebody something, the fastest way to teach somebody something is to make them suffer, which is how the elite have mastered what is all this this electrocution about? I mean, it's the most efficient form of controlling a person. What do you think all these waves are that they're putting on us? These radio waves, these Wi-Fi waves, all these waves, what do you think they're doing? That's where, as I said, it helps to understand that the Anakim, the Anunnaki, well, let's call it the Nephilim, the Anunnaki, and the Naga. I assume your audience know who they are, the Nephilim being the giants, the Anunnaki. They mustn't, the Anunnaki has been, we understand them as two people in one. They're a separate people, and then you've got the Nagas, or the snake people. The main city in Agartha, called Shambhala, is built on a sacred lake. It then has a valley in the center of it, and on that sacred lake is what they call the Crystal Palace. Now, this Crystal Palace, again, you have to start questioning why crystal. You have to start asking yourself these questions. There's this Crystal Palace. It's known in the Tibetan philosophy as Mount Meru. That is also a step pyramid. You go look at any of the Tibetan drawings that they have, and you've got the step pyramid. And it's known as a crystal palace, which tells you it's made of crystal. Okay, it has other things, but the point is it's crystal. Crystal, we know, holds energy. Yeah, it's not just milk, but all your organic vegetables, all your natural vegetables. Try and eat natural. There is a reason why they are poisoning us with our own food. About a year ago, I think it was, maybe a bit more than a year ago, they did a test as to why some of the babies in America in one particular state were being born with half brains. The actual skull wasn't fully formed. The brain wasn't fully formed, and they tried to find out what was the root cause here. What was it? Some medication that the mothers had been given? Was it some pesticide in there? They didn't know what it was, and they eventually found out that the nutrition in the food was inadequate to develop that child or that fetus's skeletal structure and its brain. So the food is now designed to kill you. You have to start growing your own food. You have to start taking care of yourself with natural, real nutrition, not watered down nutrition as told. This is very nutritious and it's been supplemented. Why do you need to supplement natural food? It's illogical. I'll give you this piece of the puzzle. The fastest way to raise your consciousness is to not rely on external authority. The fastest way to raise your consciousness is not to rely on the internet for research and not to rely on any written subject matter that you find out in the world. The first place to start is inside. So if you've got any question that you want to ask in life, the first place to start is within. Mull it over, meditate on it. Not meditation where we all go and we specifically sit in a certain pose or posture and we meditate, but even just ruminate, think, just contemplate anytime during a day on something that you want to figure out. Don't use any external reference point yet. The fastest way to raise your consciousness is start within and figure it out as far as you can, as much as you can, first by yourself. Once you've got to a point where you've built yourself a certain picture, a mind map, a three-dimensional image, however you perceive your puzzle being solved, then go and confirm it. Do not use somebody else's authority. Again, what can you take in a vortex? What can you take in a black hole? If you had to uplift yourself today and we could move through a black hole, what would you take? You'd take what you have physically on you. You're not going to take a rucksack with everything because we do not know what we need on the other side. So it's pointless. You need your consciousness. You need your love. However, the horror movies are playing against us. The horror movies are making us believe that the out there is really bad. in your dreams or in your meditations, you will sometimes see some of the most nasty things out there, but have any of them actually physically attacked you? Yeah, you can see Mount Meru. This is the Tibetan idea or Tibetan concept of Mount Meru. There is this stepped pyramid. This is a bird's eye view. We think it's just a rectangular form, but look at these lines down here. These lines down here tell you this is in a three-dimensional image. So if we can visualize it going up, so now you've got your little island on which this sits, or the valley, and then you've got around it, you've got the sacred lake, which is what is in Agartha. Agartha, that stepped pyramid, that ziggurat, is built like this. Mount Meru, this describes Agartha. But notice, yeah, you've got something moving up. This is a wormhole. This is a stargate. This thing here, this whole thing is a stargate. Let's look at Mount Meru. This is in natural formation, if you want to call it. Look at this, going off to where? Where is this going? Nobody discusses that. We're all so busy involved as to the different aliens, the different beings. Now, here's Midgard. This is what we call Earth. This is the realm of Earth. You've got what they call Ashgard, or what we call inner Earth. This sits over here. Now, you'll see here with these worlds, these tree roots. This is an ash tree. Yggdrasil is known as an ash tree. These roots lead to different worlds. However, if you look carefully at the picture, you will notice that there's a secret in here that we don't pay attention to. So if you have a look, you can see, all right, we're not going to get into where this goes yet, but let's look at Earth. We're Earth here, and we are right next door to Agartha. So the question becomes, we can get to Agartha through different means. There we see roots, but yeah, we've got tunnels. So the trick is to, when you look at a picture, don't look at it superficially. Look at it in detail. All these actually show different cave systems or different systems burrowing in to Agartha from Earth. These are a three-sided pyramid with a base to give you four sides. So if you combine one facing up, one facing down, and you combine them, you end up with what they call a star tetrahedron or Makabe. Now this is what Ernst was talking about, what you could actually travel into these different universes. So while we think we need a physical UFO to travel places, you can do this, your body will stay behind, but through this instrument, through this Makabe, you can actually travel off into different dimensions and different places. These balls, if you can see where I kept calling it my mouse, it's my cursor. If you can see this cursor now showing the circle around the Makabe, that's when the two tetrahedrons are turning in opposite directions. When they spin at a certain speed, they will actually start generating light. And these are sometimes the balls of light that you see in the sky. These are actually people who have actually activated their own Makabe, and they are traveling. And you'll sometimes see them individually, sometimes in sets of 3 or more. This is one of the explanations of what you'll possibly see. When we're talking of energy, the material world, that's where you're going to understand the Makabe. So it's interesting to now start realizing what levels you're dealing with. The Makabe you're going to visualize around you. It's not going to be a physical thing you're going to make. It takes a while to get that whole thing set up, because you've got to do it with breaths, you've got to do it with certain postures, you've got to do it with certain what they call mudras or positions on the hands. They give you different things. It's going to do with breathing as well. So that Makabe is set up, that light spirit body is set up through a visualization process. Drunvala Melchizedek, go and have a look. He is the one that's explained all this. He will take you through that. Then you move into the cube, where you start understanding we're traveling from one physical world into another physical world, interdimensional travel. I mean, Odin Sphere was made of the suns, of energy. Now, when you look at this, you've got two poles in electricity, an anode and a cathode, and between them you need two of them to cause an arc. That arc is what we call a wormhole. Same as when you see electricity, it's from a certain point down. Something's happening. Don't question, don't just think lightning is just lightning. No, things are happening. One of them is going to be an anode, one is going to be a cathode. The point is, one is the gate opening on this side and the gate opening on the other side.
So when we see lightning in the sky, do you think that could be someone traveling?
Well, this is, now you see, Andrew, that's the type of thinking that you want to get into. We have never questioned. We look at the stars and we say, wow, fabulous. Who's questioned what electricity is? Look, when we think of electricity, you don't want to think of electricity in the house. You want to take it deeper than that. You want to look at EMF, electromagnetic fields or currents. EMF. That's the electricity you're talking about. That energy runs in two directions. It runs through the wormhole, but there's also a current running from the side. Now, I want to try and settle a lot of people's minds about these twin towers that were blown up and taken out in America. Those two represented an anode and a cathode, or a wormhole to another place. You'll notice in the movie Stargate, we had a Stargate here and something else on the other side opened up. They blew those two towers because they were shutting down the Stargate of that particular planet, that particular constellation, that particular place. They wanted to shut down that Stargate. Alignments for what? We never question. We always poo-poo astrology. What are we aligning, Andrew? Why are alignments the word we don't pay attention? The sun and the moon has aligned with another planet. Is alignment not a direct path? A wormhole? Is that not another form of alignment?
Yeah. Is this so are there pyramids lying up in a row and they can travel to somewhere?
Right.
Because maybe like they only have certain range on them, so maybe there's only certain times a year they can travel to somewhere.
Yeah, think about the speed of an arc. How fast does electricity arc?
Yeah.
That's the speed at which you travel from one place to another.
Right.
These are what they call the Einstein-Rosen bridge, the so-called interdimensional travel. And there they show Earth being swallowed in a black hole. Oh, these black holes are very scary. Yeah. Don't go through a black hole. Yeah. That's control. But remember, these guys who are in control of this have got these stargates open permanently. We're just not allowed there. That's why these so-called national monuments are protected. You can't just walk there. But there are places within the buildings that have the wormholes. Sometimes you'll have an archway. What's that story of Narnia? Where those kids go through that wardrobe?
Yeah.
Well, that's a squared opening. You've got other people who will put rings on the ground. You've got Stargate, the movie, who'll put a ring upright in a vertical position. You've got other people who will access it from caves. You've got different places. So you have to study the building to understand where is this wormhole or this node or this opening. They've already plugged all these physical stargates. That's why in the middle of nowhere there's a military base camp. Andrew, I mean, a military base camp is heavily armed, heavily protected with guns and stuff. What are they protecting out in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got to start asking yourself, what's going on? I mean, protecting it from who? I mean, in Antarctica, they've got a military base. What are they protecting?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you start asking these questions about all these places. So the stargates that we can build, and this is where you're not just going to go there, get given the recipe to build a stargate and it's going to happen. You have to raise your consciousness. Because, Andrew, if we are going to go with our polluted brains, our level of consciousness, with our egos, with our I want and the me and the I, and we go off to these other places, Andrew, they're not going to accept us there. Look, there's certainly the dark side and there's the light side, but think logically. This is why we have to do our homework and why we have to start thinking and we have to start getting the ideas of what's going on there. If we're going to go to a certain place, why would we go there? We need to go there for a purpose. You're not going to go there for a trip. You're not going to go there for a holiday. That's another thing. These psychedelics that people that are made illegal. We go on what they call a trip. Now, a trip has got a lot of meaning, and a trip is also what happens when electricity shorts. We are meant to stay here until we've raised our consciousness enough to go off and go and visit. And if your consciousness is raised to enough of a degree, you will be allowed to stay.